In the spring of 1858, as America fractured over slavery, hundreds of delegates gathered in Pittsburgh to attempt what many deemed impossible: healing an 80-year-old theological schism. The relentless dialectic of division and consolidation constantly reshaped American Protestantism, driven by theological rigor, rapid geographic expansion, and the shifting institutional requirements of a growing republic. Within Presbyterianism, Scottish dissenters, principally Seceders and Covenanters, maintained a fierce attachment to confessional purity and religious liberty, carrying their deeply rooted historical disputes across the vast Atlantic Ocean. These fragmented traditions maintained fine theological distinctions forged during 17th century Scottish conflicts, but expanding antebellum frontiers ultimately demanded a unified, cohesive structure for robust global evangelism. In the spring of 1858, two major synods formally merged in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to constitute the United Presbyterian Church in North America, achieving a long-sought institutional realization. This watershed event brought together two major strands of Scottish dissent that had existed in parallel or outright separation for over three-quarters of a century. The constituent bodies comprised transatlantic immigrants and their direct descendants, predominantly Scottish Covenanters and Seceders, who had laboriously adapted their rigid ecclesiastical heritage to dynamic American environmental realities. Through this act of organic union, the newly formed body immediately consolidated its standing as the primary institutional representative of its antecedent church's historical theological convictions. The mechanics of this convergence required the seamless integration of decades of accumulated institutional infrastructure and intellectual capital across all participating regional Presbyterian Synod bodies. Rather than abandoning their distinct identities, the negotiating bodies harmonized their inherited legacy into a single, cohesive, and unified ecclesiastical organism across North American regions. This consolidation encompassed key educational foundations, combining governance and resources of existing colleges and theological seminaries to create a unified system for professional ministerial training. Domestic and foreign evangelical enterprises were merged under centralized administrative oversight, amplifying overall outreach to project substantial religious influence across rapidly growing global mission fields. Merging historical archives, liturgical usages, and parliamentary precedents preserved continuous continuity with their rich Reformation heritage, while transforming localized efforts into a robust national enterprise. Despite broad enthusiasm at the assembly, the process of corporate union was not entirely unanimous among all of the participating Presbyterian delegates gathered inside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A resolute minority within the Associate Synod viewed the terms of the merger as a serious compromise of historical principle, particularly regarding specific confessional testimonies. Exercising their right of dissent, this persistent group declined to enter the new organization, choosing instead to preserve an independent existence under their legacy title. This group maintained their separate corporate identity under the title the Associate Synod of North America, upholding strict ancestral doctrines established long ago by Scottish dissenters. This persistent protest underscored ongoing tension within the Reformed tradition between the ideal of visible Catholicity and the relentless demand for unyielding and absolute ideological purity. Nevertheless, the United Presbyterian Church in North America emerged equipped with a renewed sense of identity, broad institutional reach, and a firm commitment to its heritage. The identity of the United Presbyterian Church in North America was fundamentally rooted in a rigorous, distinctively modified confessional posture framing its foundational theology across Pennsylvania. While the broader Presbyterian tradition gravitated toward the Westminster Confession, this denomination formally adopted the standards with crucial modifications insulating ecclesiastical authority from secular civil oversight. While one branch retained the original text unchanged, the new body synthesized these approaches through a supplemental document known as the Testimony for All Members. Full adoption of the testimony was established as a mandatory condition of communion for both ordained officers and lay members throughout the entire national church body. This testimony served as an active, binding moral and liturgical compass, codifying explicit stances on pressing ethical issues, most notably maintaining an uncompromising opposition to human slavery. By taking a definitive ecclesiastical stand against slavery, the church aligned itself with radical abolitionist ethics, positioning its pulpits as platforms for social justice during national division. Furthermore, its stance against secret societies reflected a deep conviction that oath-bound fraternal orders threatened Christian fellowship and introduced sub-Christian moral codes into believers' daily lives. In its internal discipline, the United Presbyterian Church in North America upheld close communion, restricting access to those who formally professed agreement with the denomination's standards. Additionally, the Church affirmed the enduring moral duty of public religious covenanting, asserting that believers and ecclesiastical bodies remain bound by solemn vows made before God. Nowhere was this distinctiveness more visible than in public worship, where the denomination strictly mandated exclusive use of biblical psalms, rejecting uninspired human hymns in corporate praise. By 1890, the administrative framework of the United Presbyterian Church in North America expanded into a robust institutional ecosystem spanning 8 regional synods across Pennsylvania and beyond. This rapid demographic and spatial growth necessitated a refined governance framework capable of maintaining doctrinal uniformity across sprawling geographic territories while preserving local pastoral responsiveness. Serving as the foundational court, the local session comprised the minister alongside elected ruling elders to manage congregation-level spiritual health and exercise initial disciplinary jurisdiction. Functioning as the primary supervisory court within a defined geographic zone, the presbytery held authority over pastoral installations, ministerial licensure, and the adjudication of congregational disputes. Operating over broader regional boundaries, the synod acted as an intermediate appellate body, coordinating regional initiatives and reviewing the proceedings of subordinate presbyteries across the state. Standing as the supreme judicatory body, the General Assembly established binding policy, issued authoritative doctrinal clarifications, and served as the court of final appeal for the entire denomination. The preservation of theological orthodoxy rested directly upon a strict demarcation of authority, restricting administration of the sacraments exclusively to ordained ministers across Pennsylvania. Official doctrinal teaching was strictly confined to ordained ministers and approved licentiates who had formally demonstrated complete theological competency before their respective regional presbyteries. This institutional gatekeeping served a clear purpose, preventing heterodox teachings from entering congregational pulpits and ensuring every public proclamation harmonized with the church's confessional standards. The long-term vitality and theological fidelity of the United Presbyterian Church in North America depended directly upon its commitment to rigorous intellectual and ministerial preparation across all operational spheres. Recognizing that uneducated leadership invited doctrinal instability, the denomination constructed an extensive educational network designed to equip clergy and lay members with theological depth and practical leadership skills. To supply its expanding pulpits with qualified pastors, the church operated 3 primary domestic theological seminaries located in Newburgh, New York, Allegheny, Pennsylvania, and Xenia, Ohio. These regional hubs functioned as centers of confessional formation, grounding candidates in classical languages, biblical exegesis, historical theology, and Presbyterian polity to supply growing regional pulpits. The denomination extended this academic strategy overseas by establishing foreign training hubs, maintaining missionary seminaries at Osyut and Ramleh in Egypt for advanced local study. Rather than relying permanently on foreign personnel, these institutions facilitated the cultivation of self-sustaining indigenous leadership, enabling local converts to acquire advanced theological competence in their native contexts. Complementing its professional theological institutions, the church retained governance over Westminster, Monmouth, and Ohio Central colleges to provide comprehensive liberal arts instruction framed by confessional principles. These undergraduate institutions integrated rigorous academic instruction with a distinctly reformed worldview, preparing laymen and future divinity students to engage contemporary intellectual challenges from a firm confessional foundation. The United Presbyterian Church translated its confessional principles into active outreach through a highly structured network of specialized boards tasked with distinct administrative burdens across Pennsylvania. This division of labor enabled the church to execute complex, long-term philanthropic and evangelical initiatives, both domestically and abroad, through streamlined administrative oversight. The foreign missionary footprint expanded into strategic international centers, establishing active mission stations across India, Egypt, and Syria to spread confessional reform principles worldwide. A foreign mission, originally instituted in China as a living memorial of the 1858 Union, was subsequently transferred to California to minister to growing Pacific Coast immigrant populations. Financial records from the 1876-1877 fiscal period underscore the scale of this commitment, reflecting substantial annual expenditures dedicated to foreign fields and domestic frontier initiatives. Social concern found expression in the work of the Board of Freedmen, established to provide educational and moral assistance to formerly enslaved African Americans following the Civil War. By founding schools, vocational academies, and churches across the Reconstruction South, the denomination sought to secure practical socio-economic advancement for freed individuals across the nation. Simultaneously, the Board of Publication managed a broad media apparatus, disseminating devotional literature, theological treatises, and 4 primary periodicals to maintain informational unity across its constituency. Comprising 1 monthly magazine, 1 semi-monthly paper, and 2 weekly newspapers, these publications maintained theological consistency and continuous communication across all dispersed congregations in North America. While the United Presbyterian Church in North America consolidated its reach across northern and western states, it maintained a delicate, highly intentional relationship with the Associate Reformed Synod of the South. Despite geographic separations exacerbated by the Civil War, the two bodies shared an undeniable ancestral lineage and maintained a distinct structural organization while fostering warm, cordial, fraternal relations. This affinity yielded a practical cooperative framework formally ratified in 1875, establishing a system of mutual recognition and shared ministry across presbyteries. Under this accord, ordained ministers and licensed candidates became eligible to receive pastoral appointments and serve congregations across both denominations seamlessly. The two bodies joined operational forces across essential functional boards, collaborating in home missions, freedmen's education, publication, and foreign missionary labor in Egypt. While this deep functional alignment prompted discussions regarding a formal merger, ecclesiastical caution ultimately tempered momentum, instructing representatives to refrain from binding steps toward corporate union. This measured approach allowed the Southern body, comprising roughly 70 ministers, to maintain its unique regional footprint anchored by Erskine College in Due West, South Carolina. The formation and expansion of the United Presbyterian Church in North America stands as a monumental achievement in 19th century American ecclesiastical history. By synthesizing the theological convictions of Scottish seceders into a unified denomination, the church proved that strict confessional orthodoxy could flourish alongside dynamic missionary enterprise and institutional growth across North America. The journey of the United Presbyterian Church in North America demonstrates how deeply held convictions can survive, adapt, and unify amidst cultural transformation. As we look back on their commitment to confessional integrity and social justice, we are challenged to examine our own institutional and personal legacies. How do we balance the preservation of timeless historical principles with the urgent practical demands of a changing culture? Furthermore, where in our own communities are we being called to sacrifice factional division for the sake of a greater unified purpose? Join us next week as we turn back the pages of history to examine another pivotal chapter in Reformed heritage, the formation and impact of the Free Presbyterian Synod of 1847. If you enjoyed this deep dive into historical theology, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Theology Today for more insightful content on church history, confessional theology, and biblical studies.